and a very warm welcome to all the respected participants. My name is Sharad Shrivastava and I'm leading this point of care ultrasound segment for South Asia in GE Healthcare. The pandemic of COVID-19 requires rapid and easy access to reliable imaging modalities for diagnosis and follow-up. Today in our exclusive live webinar, we will present a comprehensive benefits of point of care ultrasound, the diagnosis of the lungs and the cardiovascular systems. It's an honor to introduce Professor Dr. Amutham as the faculty of today's webinar. So he is actually Emeritus Professor of Cardiology, the Tamil Nadu Dr. MGR Medical University. He is former Professor of HOD and Department of Cardiology, NGRH. He is an interventional cardiologist, Vardhaman Hospital, Madurai. He is Director of 4D Echocardiography, Jayalakshmi Heart Center, Madurai, and he has published more than 50 papers. So he is Fellow Cardiology Society of India, past President, and he is also Cardiology Society of India, Tamil Nadu State. He is Fellow of Indian Academy of Echocardiography and National past President of IAE. He is Secretary, Indian Society of Electrocardiography, Madurai branch. He is Chairman of IMA, AMS, TNSB, and past President of IMA, Madurai. He is life member of Association of Physicians of India, and he has done DM Cardiology from PGI, Chandigarh in 1991. He has conferred Lifetime Achievement Award by Governor of Tamil Nadu in 2012. This is a very prestigious award, and most important, he is the author of the book Manual of 3D Echocardiography 2012 and editor of Textbook of Echocardiography by IAE in 2018. So a very warm welcome to him. So in today's session, Professor Dr. Amutham will cover point of care ultrasound's cardiac applications, use in ER, lung and carotid ultrasound, and will also help us with a live clinical demo. It also gives me immense pleasure and opportunity to briefly tell you about the latest innovation from GE Healthcare in the point of care ultrasound space, that is the pocket size ultrasound Vscan Extend. We know that the fast, confident decisions can enhance your productivity and improve patient outcomes. So Vscan Extend builds on the legacy of the original Vscan system to empower you to expedite your workflow and make quick assessments and treatment decisions on the spot. It has dedicated lungs and cardiac applications and accelerates the speeds to decision, boost your confidence and build trust to your patients. So you are empowered to make the most of the critical moment. During this webinar, I would request you to share your questions and queries at the chat box. We would like to take that questions towards the end of this webinar. Now, let's give a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Amutham, and I will hand it over to you, sir, for your session. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharad, for your nice introduction. Today's topic is point of care ultrasound or POCUS. This is the handheld ultrasound webinar, and it will be highlighting on Vscan, which is now available in India. When I went to AAC some few years back, they were stressing very much on point of care ultrasound, which I was very much interested. And last year in ESC Paris, they were doing a live demo of this equipment, Vscan, over Wi-Fi. So that was a starting point of this whole episode. Now these are some of my books, and this is a very detailed textbook on echocardiography by Indian Academy of Echocardiography, father of echocardiography in India, Dr. Sharish Parashar, and myself. Now, agenda for today will be there will be a talk by me on POCUS, point of care ultrasound, where I will be stressing on cardiac applications, various views, color flow mapping, and ejection fraction calculation, and use of POCUS in emergency room for various procedures, lung ultrasound and carotid ultrasound. Following this talk, we will try to do the live demo in the cardiac ultrasound imaging with L Vivo EF based application, and lung ultrasound. We will show you screen mirroring and live Wi-Fi transmission of image and reception, viewing and analysis in EchoPack by consultant. Now, this is a very important point here is the Wi-Fi transmission, which I will elaborate later. Now, this is a recent editorial written in the ESCVI journal, ESC Journal of Cardiac Imaging, on focus cardiac ultrasound. In United States, they call it as point of care ultrasound. In Europe, they call it as focused cardiac ultrasound. There are very many machines which have come up for this pocket ultrasound, but the only one which is available in our country is Vscan. We have one by Philips, and there are a lot of advertisements by Butterfly, which is a transducer which can be attached to your your phone. So that is the one which they are advertising, but these are not available in India. What is available here is this equipment which is called as this is the Vscan, which is available here now. So basic training is required for acquiring these images from using this transducer. You can have two transducers here. One is the cardiac transducer, second is the vascular transducer. And on call, the case can be examined by the junior resident or the junior most in the department who can go actively and see the patient in the night, and he can transmit to the PACS, and then it can be transmitted to the center for examination by the consultant. As you know, ultrasound is a mechanical energy that propagates through a continuous elastic medium to compression and rarefaction of the particles that compose it. This is sound. Whereas ultrasound are sound waves with frequencies exceeding the range of human hearing, that is more than 20,000 cycles per second or 20 kilohertz. So that is the ultrasound, definition of the ultrasound. And this is the interaction between the sound waves and the tissues, and various tissues reflect it back with various intensities, and that is recorded by the ultrasound equipment which has the quartz crystal. Now, coming to the basic imaging planes for the transthoracic echocardiography, you have transthoracic echocardiography, parasternal views, which are the commonest views. Parasternal long axis view, parasternal short axis view, then the apical views, apical 4 chamber, apical 3 chamber, and apical 2 chamber. You can have subcostal views and suprasternal notch views. And these are the acoustic windows. The parasternal area is the commonest area where you start the examination. Then you move to the apical area, then the subcostal area. This is the suprasternal arch area. And transthoracic views you can see in the mitral valve in long axis, short axis, apical 4 chamber, and apical long chamber. So just like that, you have to view in various views. Suppose you want to examine left ventricle, you have to see that in long axis, short axis, apical 4 chamber, and subcostal 4 chamber and short axis also. So these are the ways in which you examine that. How do you do the ultrasonography is by rotation. So the transducer, you have the index mark. This is the index mark. This should be always pointed towards the right shoulder of the individual to produce the long axis view from the parasternal window. If you rotate it 90 degrees, you can see the short axis. So this is rotation first. Then you can tilt the transducer this side and that side. We will demonstrate this during the demonstration. And you can angle it, and the plane of scan can be altered. So this is the positioning of the patient for echocardiography. Almost we do it from the left lateral position. The examiner can stand in the left side so that he can use the left hand, or in the North India they use to stand behind the patient and use the right hand for examining. So these are the commonest types of examination. And this is the V scan, which can be mirrored. The V scan images can be mirrored in the large screen so that you can see as a big this thing. So in real time, you acquire the image. Then you can store that image in the scanner, I mean the scan machine itself, and it can be forwarded by Wi-Fi. So it can be transmitted or shared by Wi-Fi, and then from there you can use the Wi-Fi receiver, DICOM server, which is installed in the laptop, and this can be viewed in the EchoPack, and that gives you the for complete analysis. It can be used for health education, in telemedicine, and treatment of the patient. So now coming to the views, the ASC or American Society of Echocardiography focus protocol imaging views. They have suggested the views for the imaging that includes the parasternal long axis. You can see parasternal long axis, parasternal short axis, apical views, and view of the IVC. This is very important, which we commonly ignore, whereas this is very important to view the IVC in patients with who are in emergency room. And also you have to look at the lungs, look at the A lines and pleural effusion, and if there are B lines in the emergency room, we can identify and look for the lung consultation. And especially in patients with COVID-19, some protocols, focus protocols have been developed. As you know, COVID-19 is the pandemic which has stricken our part of the country, and it has led to large number of mortalities in Mumbai and in various metros. The mortality rate is very high, and it is now declining in Tamil Nadu, in most part of the India, but it's still in Western countries, the decline has not happened. The American Society of Echocardiography has also given the COVID-19 focus protocol, where you have to examine the left ventricle. Look at the left ventricle for the size, global and regional function to identify whether there is myocarditis, ACS, or cardiomyopathy or shock. Look at the right ventricle for the size and function, and TR for PSP if available. Some of the countries, equipments it may be available, and pericardial effusion and cardiomyopathy. The pericardium has to be looked for to look for the effusion and tamponade, and valves. Most important is the valves: cross, regurgitation or stenosis, and pre-existing cardiovascular disease. So first of all, you start with this American Society of Echocardiography slide, where you start the examination in the parasternal long axis, and you can tilt it, and you can see the right ventricular inflow. You can see that this is right ventricular inflow. This is tricuspid valve, which is seen here, and you can tilt it and see the right ventricular outflow view also. So this is the right ventricular outflow view. This is the pulmonary valve which is seen. So from the parasternal long axis, you have to have three views. This is the standard long axis view consisting of left ventricle, left atrium, aorta, and the mitral valve. And tilting upwards, you can see the tricuspid valve, and tilting downwards, you can see the outflow view. So these are important slides. This is the cut. And then you rotate the transducer by 90 degrees, so that if you view the mitral valve, this is the 90 degrees, this is the long axis view. From here you have to rotate it by 90 degrees, so that you see the mitral valve in the short axis. You can see here the mitral valve in the short axis. So mitral valve in the short axis. Then this is the aortic valve, which can be seen. You can see the aortic valve. The aortic valve in the short axis. And then you go to the apical views. The apical views are very important. This is the view. These images were recorded from V-scan only, and you can see the quality of the images, which are very good. So this is the apical 4-chamber view. Then you rotate it by 60 degrees to acquire the apical 2-chamber view, where you see only left ventricle, left atrium, and mitral valve. Here you can see the left atrial appendage. Then you again rotate it by 60 degrees, where you see the apical long axis. This is the apical long axis, and you can see here this is the aorta, id valve. This is the left ventricle. This is the aortomitral continuity, anterior mitral leaflet, and posterior mitral leaflet. This is the left atrium. So these are the three apical views which are very important, and this is the color flow mapping recorded from this equipment. And the patients are referred for echocardiography to assess the LV systolic function very commonly. The indication is heart failure, and patients in whom LV dysfunction forms important component of the risk evaluation, especially in patients who are going to go for surgery and the asymptomatic patients. So these are the patients where you have to examine this. I know most of our examiners do this eyeballing, and it is very subjective, experience dependent, and there is a lack of standardization. There is a large inter and intra-observer variability of this calculation. So it is always not recommended. No, it has come out or what? This one? Why? I don't know. It is coming out of the screen very commonly. I don't know. And most important method, volumetric method, is the and you can see in most part of our country what is done by the most of the examiners is the that slide is a bad slide, I suppose, that is not playing. So most part of our country they use the mode echocardiography, which is abandoned by American Society of Echocardiography. Never do ejection fraction calculation using the M mode, because M mode uses cube formula. Left ventricle is not a cube, as you know. So never use this M mode. What you should use is the volumetric method, which is shown here, the ejection fraction calculation using the Simpson method. And it correlates very well with the CMR calculation. This is the biplane disk summation method of Simpson. This correlates very well with the CMR. And equally good results are achieved by the V-scan. You can see here the LVO. Ejection fraction, you can see here. It's a very automatic procedure where the software identifies the edge of the left ventricle, and you can have the ejection fraction results within minutes. You can see here. The end diastolic volume as well as the end systolic volume are calculated automatically by the software, and ejection fraction can be achieved, and you can store this image also. So that is how it is done. And similarly, you can use this equipment for assessment of the RV function, which we will demonstrate. And right ventricle has a peculiar anatomy. It has the inflow. You can see here inflow, then the apex as well as the outflow. So it has difficulties in achieving this, but we can quantify the right ventricular ejection fraction using the 2D principles. But the only caveat is that we will not be including the RV outflow in this calculation. This is the end systolic volume as well as the end diastolic volume can be calculated from the RV focused apical four chamber. This is the RV focused apical. This is a classical apical four chamber. This is RV focused apical four chamber which has to be used. This is RV modified apical four chamber, and the quantification can be done using this equipment. And you can use the RV free wall thickness, measured in 2D. You can see here the measurement can be done very easily using. And assessment of the LV diastolic dysfunction can be assessed by LA volume. There are 4 standard methods which include the Doppler techniques, spectral Doppler, tissue Doppler, imaging of the mitral annulus from the medial side and lateral side, and calculating the average E by E prime ratio, and then the TR jet velocity, and finally calculation of the LA volume, very important. And LA volume can be calculated by using the area length method or disc summation technique. You have to identify this mitral annular connection here, both medially and laterally, and you should not exceed this. And you should carefully draw the border of the LA, internal border of the LA, excluding the pulmonary vein attachments and the LA appendage attachment. So that is important. Now, during chest pain, if the patient has chest pain, resident who is going to do the POCUS for him should identify these things. He should ask to himself, is there pericardial effusion? Is there a discrepancy in right versus left chamber size? Are there signs of global cardiac dysfunction? Is there an absence of pleural sliding? Is the aortic root dilated? Or is there a flap seen in the aortic root, identifying a dissection of the aorta? So if the patient has breathlessness, then he should do also the lung ultrasound, try to understand and do whether there are A lines, B lines, or look for consolidation, pleural line abnormalities, or pleural sliding, pleural fluid should be looked for. So I will show some of the cases which are recorded in the emergency room. This is the patient who was admitted with inferior wall infarction as well as the RV infarction. And you can see here, this is the long axis view, and you can see here this is a posterior lateral segment contraction is abnormal here, and this is recorded image in a different equipment, and you can see here the 4-chamber plane. This is the inferior septum. This is the inferior wall. Very important. The 2-chamber view, you can always identify the inferior wall. Basal inferior wall. This is basal inferior septum. This is basal infralateral wall. So these areas you have to identify, and there is akinesia involving the inferior wall, inferior septum, as well as the inferior lateral wall. You can identify in this. So you can identify whether there is any regional wall motion abnormality. So second case, this is a 42-year-old male admitted with chest pain and pansystolic murmur in left channel edge. And his X-ray showed presence of pulmonary edema. You can see here. The pulmonary edema. And this is the long axis view. This is the short axis view. You can see here in the short axis. This is a short axis view in the mitral valve level. You can see here there is a rent in the interventricular septum. There is a rupture, ventricular septal rupture, VSR. And this is very well seen in the inferior septum. This is basal inferior septum. And you can see the left-right shunt across this level. So angiogram done. And that shows the presence of 90% block in the mid RCA. So the patient was taken for management. So this is the third case. This is a case of aortic dissection. You can see here. Just by looking at the long axis, you can see that the flap is seen in the ascending aorta. So suppose the flap is not seen in ascending aorta, seen in the descending aorta and in the abdominal aorta, then it is Stanford type B. So this is Stanford type A, this is Stanford type B. And very easily you can identify and pick up these flaps by the Parkers. This is another ER case which I am showing you. This is a 41-year-old gentleman with a history of pain and swelling of the left leg and one episode of syncope and giddiness. Syncope and giddiness. And you can see the non-specific changes in the R wave in B1. And this is the echocardiography, handheld echocardiography done immediately. You can see here the RA is dilated. There is dilated RV. There is McConnell's sign, and you can see here hypokinesis of this segment, and there is a large dilated RV. And this patient, we did the transesophageal echocardiography, which identified the presence of thrombus in the pulmonary artery. So this is another patient who was having a history of assault, following which he developed giddiness and brief loss of consciousness. History of palpitations were present. There was no history of pain. You can see here. This is a patient who had assault over the chest, trauma chest. And you can see here the day 1 recording, which is showing the hypokinetic segment in the septum and anterior wall. This is a comparison of the short axis. He completely recovered after 5 days. So that is the trauma-induced concussion, which results in the regional wall motion abnormality. This is another case. The patient was seen with wide QRS tachycardia in a private hospital. You can see here, this is a wide QRS tachycardia. This is ECG recorded early in the morning. At 6 o'clock, he almost recovered. So, dilated cardiac chambers. And this is the transcardiac diameter, which was increased. And you can see here the epsilon waves in the ECG in B1. This is his long axis view, and you can see here the RV is gradually dilated and the LV is small. And you can see here, this is the apical, short axis at aortic level. You can see here, this is the pulmonary artery, pulmonary valve. And see that gradually dilated RVOT. The RVOT is gradually dilated. RV is dilated and the RVOT is dilated. This is the RA, RV inflow view showing the RV. This is the apical 4-chamber view, again showing the dilated. So this patient was having arrhythmogenic RV dysplasia. So now this is another patient. This is a different patient who had a pericardial effusion. Here, this is the pericardial effusion. And these can be picked up very easily by this echocardiography. 2D, where the 2D helps you in identifying the pericardial effusion. You can see that pericardial effusion slides. So this is a short axis demonstrating the pericardial effusion. And see this, the grossly dilated IVC. The dilated IVC which is seen. So effusive constrictive pericarditis. This patient was having effusive constrictive pericarditis. So this is another case. So during interventions also it is very useful. So this is our Dr. Vinayagamani, radiologist, interventional radiologist in Malayan Hospital. He helped me in doing this help during the puncture. There was a difficulty in puncturing of the aorta and puncturing of the femoral artery and femoral vein. He helped me in this. You can see here. This is the V-scan equipment, which the first equipment to land in India. First V-scan extend equipment. Previously, they had only V-scan Now we can extend where you have both. This is the echocardiographic transducer, and this is the vascular transducer, two transducers. And this is a patient with mitral stenosis. He was examined in the cath lab, looked for, and you can see the apical four-chamber view giving the turbulence in the mitral valve. And there was a difficulty in puncturing of the femoral artery, so he used this equipment. We used this V-scan during the procedure. It helped in puncturing of the femoral artery as well as the femoral vein. Both were required for puncturing, and you can see here after the puncture, you can see the reverberations by placing the sheath. So this is immediately after the balloon dilatation, and you can see here the valve has been opened well. So that is how the equipment, which is very handy, can be used in during intervention in various punctures as well as assessing the results of intervention. So all these things can be done at the bedside in the cath lab using this equipment, which can be sterilized very easily. It can be placed in a polythene bag and can be used directly in the patient. Now, lung ultrasound. Coming to lung ultrasound, these are the guidelines by the American Society of Echocardiography, where they have advised to look for the B lines, subpleural consolidation, lobar consolidation, effusion, and look for the JVP and IVC and leg veins also. So apply. So when you are going to do this lung ultrasound, apply two hands side by side over the anterior chest, with your wrists in the anterior axillary line and your upper left finger resting along the clavicle. Your lower left finger will be aligned with the lower border of the lung, the phrenic lines. So this is the phrenic line. For each point, the probe should be placed at 90 degrees to the skin, looking into the lung with the left of the screen cephalad and the right caudal. All views are longitudinal and not transverse. So these are some of the protocols developed for this. RUSH protocols, rapid ultrasound for hypotension, systemic hypotension. So you can go by these methods. So this is the bad sign, where you can see between the ribs the interplay of the lung ultrasound. So this is like a bad. This is the the bone, and this is the intercostal space, where you can have the seashore sign, which we will demonstrate now. So this is the sea and this is the sand. And this is the MOD image using the single scan line to demonstrate echoes pointed against time. So this lung ultrasound can do that. And these lines, which are horizontal lines, are called as these lines. You can see coming at very regular intervals. These are A lines. So these are the A lines, horizontal lines, coming at regular intervals. Whereas compared to that, these are B lines. So this is the intercostal bone, and you can see here in between the two intercostal bones, you have the vertical lines which are coming up. These are called as B lines. There can be 1 to 2 B lines normally, but here you have more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is abnormal. So more than 3 or 4 B lines in between two intercostal bones is abnormal. So these are artifacts generated by the juxtaposition of the alveolar air and septal thickening, and occasionally it can be seen in normal angles. So it correlates very well with the curly B lines. That is the most important point. When the edema becomes more severe, ground glass appearance of the CT, the B lines become more numerous and closely spaced. Very severe edema causes them to fuse with the hyperechoic confluent pattern that fills the space between the two ribs, and that is called as white lung. So these are some other signs: shred sign and tissue-like sign. So when there is a consolidation, this is liver-like appearance of the lung. So this is called as hepatization. Extensive consolidation will allow opposite pleural lines to be seen also with mediastinum deeper. And these are some of these lung rockets. 3 or more B lines between two ribs are called as lung rockets. Lung rockets correlate with the interstitial syndrome with 93% accuracy and stratosphere sign. Lung sliding will be reduced with low tidal volume in hyperinflated lungs. It will be absent in any condition in which the pleura are either not directly opposed, pneumothorax, effusion, or struck together. The appearance of this on the mode in the horizontal straight lines is called as stratosphere sign. You can see here, stratosphere sign. So these are some of the other points. The other most important use where you can use this handheld equipment is in diagnosis of intima media thickness assessment. It can be done. It is used very extensively in advice to be given to the patient regarding prevention of atherosclerosis, development of atherosclerosis. So for this, you have to identify the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid artery is located posterior and lateral to the external carotid artery. It is slightly larger than the external carotid artery. And the velocity difference between the systolic phase and diastolic phase of ICA is smaller. So that requires a Doppler. So this is intima. What we are interested in carotid is for intima media thickness analysis. It has been widely used as one of the parameters of atherosclerosis. It is measured on two-dimensional grayscale image. The optimal grayscale image of longitudinal scan of carotid artery, which passes by the center of the carotid artery, shows two bright interlaces along the artery wall. In the far wall, the upper bright line is the interface between the blood and intima, and lower bright line is the interface between the media layer and the adventitia layer. The interface between the intima and media does not produce any interface. The distance between the upper and lower bright line represents the thickness of the intima and media layer. The IMT is generally measured on the distal common carotid artery at the far wall because the common carotid artery is easier to image and less variable than internal carotid due to the angle of the beam or depth of the vessel. So this is the carotid Doppler. You can see here. This is measuring of the intima media thickness. The distal carotid artery is proper site for measuring the intima media thickness. The two clearly visible hyperintense lines, you can see here, two lines are seen here. This is the first line, this is the second line, and you have to measure the distance between that. The normal intima media thickness of common carotid artery as evaluated by B-mode ultrasound, this is a two-dimensional ultrasound imaging, is 0.7 plus or minus 0.14 millimeter. This is a study, very important study for Indians, done by Mrinal Kanti Ghosh, published in Journal of Cardiovascular Diseases and Research, 2012. And these are some of the images. This is a grayscale images of a large longitudinal scan of the distal common carotid artery showing a plaque. You can see here the large plaque. This is the heel and toe technique is used. The tilting of the probe from the head side to the toe side creates an angle between the probe surface and the vessel, and you can measure that for doing the color Doppler. These images were recorded by my close friend and classmate, Dr. S. Manohar, who is the owner of Doppler scans. He does extensive studies on Doppler. This is the Doppler imaging of the carotid artery, which you have seen. And this is the measurement of this right carotid bifurcation. common carotid artery, external carotid artery, this is the internal carotid artery. And in these places, you can measure the intima media thickness. This is a plot recorded in the left internal carotid artery origin, common carotid artery. And turbulence produced by that. So, thank you for your patient hearing. Now, we shall have some demonstration of this active techniques, which are very important in the day-to-day practice. So, now I request our application specialist, Mr. Kiran, who is well known nationally and internationally for his engineering as well as live application assistance during our live procedures. Now, Kiran, can you show first the scan? Just zoom in on your machine, V-scan. Ask the cameraman to show, zoom in on this equipment. This is the, on the left side, you see the screen, which is just like your iPhone. See that? This is based on Android technology, but and on the right hand, he holds the transducer, which is very sleek. It has two portions. Show the echo probe, and first to show the echo probe. This is the echo transducer. Then tilt it and show the vascular probe. So both the probes are available in the same handheld equipment. Now you can go to the left lateral position of the patient, position the patient in the left lateral side and left lateral. Yes. Now with the index pointed towards the right shoulder, you can go in for long axis. This is the long axis view. So you are now seeing the long axis view in the center of the screen. Right? What is this? They will come out of this. Screen sharing is over? Yes. I don't know. What do you want to do now? It is there. That I will show after. So now in the center, you can see that. Can you use the pointer and show that on the left hand side, you can see the left ventricle, and the center, you can see the mitral valve, anterior mitral leaflet as well as the posterior mitral leaflet. There is prolapse involving the AML as well as the PML. You can see that. And on the right side, you can see the aorta in the long axis, and then the left atrium, which is seen behind the aorta. Yes. So now you can tilt the transducer and show the RV inflow view. This is the RV inflow view. You can just tilt it towards the right side and you can see this RV inflow view. On the top of the screen, you can see the RV. In the middle, you can see the tricuspid valve, and just below that, you can see the right atrium. Now again, tilt it towards this side and show the RV outflow view. RV outflow view. Yes, if you shift it towards this side, you can see the RV outflow. Above, you can see the RV OT. The center, you see the pulmonary valve and pulmonary artery, which is branching. So this is the RV outflow view. Now rotate it by 90 degrees. 90 degrees rotation. Now you will see the mitral valve in short axis. So this is the mitral valve. You can see the round and interventricular septum and LV posterior wall can be seen. Just tilt it towards the apex. You can see the papillary muscles. This is at the papillary muscle. You can see medial papillary muscle as well as anterolateral papillary muscle. So two papillary muscles are seen. Now by tilting the transducer slightly more and moving the transducer towards the apex, you can see the LV apical view. It's slightly difficult. You can see that always the apical tilt you have to see to appreciate the twisting movement of the LV apex. It's very, very important. You can see the twisting movement of the LV apex. It's very, very important. This twisting movement is very important sign, especially in patients who are in end-stage cardiomyopathy, where this twisting movement will not be seen. Now we can tilt it towards the base, and you can see the aorta in the center, and inverted bend sign is there. And top, you see the right coronary artery cusp, and on the right hand side, non-coronary cusp, and on the left hand side, you see the left coronary cusp. And just above the central aorta, you see the right ventricle. And on the left side of the screen, you see the tricuspid valve. And on the right side, you see the pulmonary valve and pulmonary artery. So this is the short axis view. These are the classical short axis view. Now we can move this transducer towards the apex, LV apex. You can see that you can move the transducer towards the LV apex. So this is a classical, slightly move it. Yes, this is the classical 4-chamber plane where you see the left ventricle, interventricular septum dividing that, and then on the right side you see the right ventricle. And just below that you have the mitral valve on the left, and on the right you have the tricuspid valve. Just below the mitral valve you can see the left atrium, and the pulmonary veins are entering into the left atrium. Yes. You tilt it slightly 60 degrees so that you see the two-chamber view where you see only left ventricle and left atrium. Center you have the mitral valve. You can very well see the prolapsing valve in this situation, and you can see the left atrial appendage. Left atrial appendage is seen, and you can shift that to 60 degrees more. Now you see the 3-chamber view. This is the apical long axis or apical 3-chamber view, where you see the LVOT and aorta, and the aortomitral curtain, and then the anterior mitral leaflet, the posterior mitral leaflet, and the left atrium. So these are the classical views which are seen here. Can you try to show the IVC? Always it may be difficult to pick up the IVC, but routinely we should look at the IVC as per criteria laid down by the American Society of Echocardiography. You have to always measure the size of the IVC. That tells you the presence or absence of hypotension. It's very important. So IVC, this is the IVC which you can see here. You can just add the color flow. So these images can be recorded, and yes. Now you can also show the carotid Doppler. Just show the carotids. You can see the carotid Doppler. You can identify the common carotid artery, and then the branching points. May be difficult for yes. So that is how we identify this. Now to finish this live session, we shall show some lung ultrasound. Can you acquire the lung ultrasound? Lung ultrasound is important, as I told you. You have to identify the skin followed by the subcutaneous tissue, and then the A lines. These are the A lines which can be seen, and by using the slow M mode, you can record here. This is called as the seashore sign. See, above you see the sea, this is a moving aspect, and down you see the sand. So this is called as seashore sign. And the technique which is used is the slow M mode. So this is how you record the ultrasound. The transducer pointer has to point towards the head. Show the pointer. You can zoom in on the pointer. Ask the cameraman to zoom in on the pointer. so that you keep the pointer always cephalad and record it. And it is also always a vertical recording. So this is how you record. This is live, and then you can go for the M mode, slow M mode, which will separate the sand-like appearance of the moving objects which are seen above, or the seashore sea, and lower down you see the sand, and you see the lines. One line which is separating above, and equidistant downwards you see another line. So this is called as the A line. You can point towards the A lines. So this is how you do the lung ultrasound, and I request all the postgraduates and cardiologists to practice this use of this electronic step. So this is called as electronic step, and you can also show you the color flow in the apical 4-chamber. Kiran, you can show the color flow just to summarize the, and then we'll finish off this demo. Yes. So we should have shown along with the echo parameters. Now you have to change so many things before the presentation. Yes. Add color flow. Yes. So that is the color flow. You can see the mitral regurgitation jet also. He has mitral valve prolapse as well as the mitral regurgitation jet. So this is the live demo of these things. Now we will go to the telemedicine. Can I show the screen sharing option? So I want to share the screen. Continue. So
Just start. No need to.
yes. So now, Kiran, you show the equipment where you press the Wi-Fi and sharing option in the screen. You take the stored exams, go to the sharing option and share. So you have a sharing option here. You can show the sharing option, and it can be transmitted by Wi-Fi in 2 or 3 methods. One is the DICOM, second is the MPEG view. So just for viewing sake, you can transmit just by the DICOM. MPEG view. You can show the DICOM also. You can select the share option on the right top, and then JDICOM. See that JDICOM is the option for sharing as DICOM, and the one above is the sharing by MPEG. So now you can see in my computer, I have opened the DICOM server. So this is the DICOM server. I have kept start. So from there it has been pushed into the DICOM server, and now I am opening the EchoPack. So this is the EchoPack, and this is the demo image. This is the demo image which has been pushed by Mr. Kiran. You can see here, these are the images which are pushed by Kiran. So this is the EchoPack, and in the EchoPack you have received the patient's material, and you can go for the fit to screen so that you can enlarge that, and you have the long axis view. This is the aorta, LV and LA. This is the prolapsing mitral valve, antemitral leaflet and posterior mitral leaflet, and you can see here. This is the color flow which is recorded, which shows the. This is the color flow which shows the mitral regurgitation state. So it can be stopped and it can be analyzed during various phases of the cardiac cycle. You can see here. This is the short axis view. This is the short axis at mitral valve. Short axis at mitral valve, and you can stop that, and you can select the frame, and then go for assessment. I'm just showing the area trace. Just like in any other equipment, you can go for the area trace of this mitral valve. This is mitral valve prolapse, not mitral stenosis, but even though that, I'm just recording the area trace for this patient. So next, we can go for the assessment of the, this is the apical four chamber plane. So it can be zoomed, can be stopped, and then you can go for frame by frame adjustment. And go for the end diastole. So this is the end diastolic frame, and you can go for the volume measurements. This is the biplane view. The left ventricular end diastolic volume can be traced. I'm just tracing for the tracing sake. That's all. Sorry for the errors. So these are due to the computer errors which you can have. So this is the end diastolic volume. Then you can move the frame and find out the end systolic volume. And then you have the ejection fraction calculation which is available for you. This patient has mitral regurgitation, mitral valve prolapse, both AML and PML. And then he has slightly reduced ejection fraction. This is by 2D technique. That is very important. And similarly, you can use this technique for assessing the LA also. The LA volume can be assessed. So this is the maximal volume. During assessing the LA, you have to take 2 points. One is the maximal LA volume. So this is maximal LA volume. And then you go for the volume assessment. This is LA volume. Just at the point, medial attachment, medial annulus. Then you trace it so that you exclude the pulmonary veins and the left atrial appendage. Very, very important. So that is the volume, and then you can move this frame to find out the minimal volume, minimal LA volume, and then you can start the same tracing again. So you can see the calculation here. This is LA emptying fraction, LA emptying fraction. This is the LA volume, maximal LA volume and minimal LA volume. This is the maximal LA volume is 40, minimal LA volume is also there. This is the minimal LA volume. So these calculations can be done very easily. I don't know whether he has recorded the RV frames. So these are the common measurements, and for RV you can say RV focused apical four chamber plane, and then you can use these techniques. And these are the recordings which he has made regarding the lung ultrasound. So this is in short the measurements and documentation and the extensive use. I can show you another patient. This is that time? We are running out of time. It's on time.
Yes.
Huh?
15 more minutes.
You have 15 more minutes. So this is a patient with mitral stenosis whom we saw initially. This is after dilatation, and you can have the mitral valve, and you can calculate the mitral area by planimetry technique. And similarly, we have one recording from a different patient. So this is a view for the RV. This is a classical apical four chamber. Unfortunately, same can be used, but we have to use the RV focused apical four chamber view for recording this. Then you can trace the end diastolic volume as well as the end systolic volume, and thereby you can have the volume measurements. So you can assess both ejection fraction, left ventricular ejection fraction, as well as the right ventricular ejection fraction, left atrial emptying fraction. All these things can be calculated by this simple equipment, and you have a lot of advantages. And it is my pleasure to present this equipment to all the cardiologists and this in this webinar. If they think so, my idea is that this equipment is one of the best equipments which cardiologist can carry in his hand. And as we are getting older, we are becoming senior citizens. We should transfer the liabilities and capabilities to our youngsters who can carry this equipment to the emergency room, and from the emergency room they can stop sharing. Yes. So this is one important advancement which we have right in our hand, and it helps a lot. Government Rajaji Hospital, Dr. Balasubramanian, when he was professor and HOD, and now Dr. Veeramani, who is the HOD, both are having this equipment at Government Rajaji Hospital, and these equipments are carried by the DM cardiology PGs during their emergency echocardiography sessions. They diagnose the conditions. Now the advantage of the VScan extend is that the images can be immediately transmitted by Wi-Fi. I just showed the Kiran who did the image from a different place, transmitted the image by Wi-Fi to my laptop. I am sitting in consultant's room. By Wi-Fi he transmitted. I received it in the Wi-Fi DICOM server, and then which was picked up into the echo pack of my laptop, and then I started analyzing. So the machine can be placed in two places. The junior consultant or the junior most can do the scan and send the images, and the consultant can sit in his consultation room or even in his own house, can use his laptop and do the calculations and advise the juniors regarding this. They are not having the setup of a DICOM. They can push the images in MPEG-4 format, which can be seen in any of your mobile phones, WhatsApp as a WhatsApp message. The technology has improved that much. And my suggestion to all cardiologists is to carry this electronic stealth in addition to your regular stealth, and that will pay you in long run. You go and see a patient, surgery patient, just do the scan, just calculate the ejection fraction at the bedside of the surgical nursing home, and give them the ejection fraction as an assessment. It is such a simple thing. But one caveat is that you have to get PNDT clearance. You have to have PNDT clearance, and this equipment can be used only in areas where it is licensed to use. This is India, and you must remember Indian laws, and this TNDT stands between you. You cannot go to any nursing home and practice this. You have to use it legally and properly. And I thank you for your patient hearing, and I thank GE for giving me this opportunity for this extensive session, right from 6 o'clock to 7:30. Thank you. If there are any questions, I shall answer. Sharat? Sharat?
Yeah,
Are you
thank you.
there?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mutam.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
If there are any questions, you can ask.
yeah. So should I start the questions?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. So from Dr. G. Ila Vaswan has asked that where lung ultrasound is done, at the parasternal as shown by you or at the mid-axillary line at infra-axillary area.
There are 8 to 10 points from where you can record that. Kiran showed you the easiest way, and you have to examine each portion of the lung, right upper lung, middle lobe, lower lobe. You have to examine differently in all the areas. Otherwise, you will miss the consolidation in left lower lobe if you are not going to examine that. So you have to identify the consolidation, pneumothorax. All these things are possible by examining at different places. During pulmonary edema, you see the B lines, and the closeness of the B lines tells you the severity of the pulmonary edema. It is important. So I did look for the B lines. Normally you have only A lines. Very rarely you have the B lines, 1 or 2. But when it is more than 3 or 4 in between two ribs, that is pathological. Yes.
Thank you, sir. So another question is Dr. Balaji Kuppuswamy. What is the role of carotid ultrasound in the assessment of fluid responsiveness?
For fluid as this thing, you generally use IVC. They whether it is a dilated IVC or whether it is a very small IVC, fluid assessment is usually done by assessing the inferior vena cava. Carotids look for the plaques, carotid plaques, and look for the intima media thickness in youngsters. That is the way, as a cardiologist, I would suggest. Probably radiologists will see more number of cases and more applications.
Thank you. So another question is from Dr. Simi Jasuja, how to measure fluid in pleural effusion?
The level of the effusion can be seen. Just ask the patient to sip, and you can place the transducer in the back. Just look at that. Place this transducer from the lowermost area to the upper area. You can just identify that. It is just like percussion. You do the percussion and identify the dullness area. Similarly, now you can place the transducer and you can identify where the fluid is there. Yes.
Great, sir. So another question, Dr. Anant Vyangeteros Suryavanshi, role of ultrasound in ligamental injuries.
That is beyond my scope.
Yeah, I
Ligamental
understand, sir.
injuries are done by orthopedic surgeons as well as radiologists. In fact, my friend Dr. Manohar's son is a very efficient orthopedic surgeon because he is a son of a radiologist. He does ultrasound of the bones also. He identifies the ligamental tear by using the ultrasound even before it was diagnosed by MRI. So in proper hands you can do that. It needs a lot of experience.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. Satish wants to know, with respect to COVID times, to what extent is V-scan effective and useful for screening lung and heart?
It is very useful. That is why the ASC has come out with a POCUS protocol for COVID-19 patients. I showed you the ASC guidelines and protocols. This equipment is very small. You can sterilize it very easily. From patient to patient, you sterilize the equipment, and then you can take to the other patient also. And you can also wear the PPE, proper PPE, and carry this equipment. Unlike the very heavy ultrasound equipments, which can be moved into the COVID patient's area, and then it becomes very difficult to sterilize the whole equipment. You can see the guidelines which are given by Cardiological Society of India as well as Indian Academy of Echocardiography, where Rakesh Gupta has clearly shown how difficult it is to protect these equipments. You have to take adequate precautions. Whereas this small handy equipment, just like your mobile phone with a transducer, you can do wonders. You can do the sterilization part very easily, and you can do the usual routine protocols which are given. See, you have to assess the LV size and look for the LV ejection fraction to calculate to find out whether there is myocarditis or there is involvement of the acute coronary syndrome which may be associated, and look for the RV size associated with the McConnell's sign. Look for the thromboembolism and the pulmonary part secondary to this. So this identification is very easy with this equipment.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Priyadarshini Sunny Grahi wants to know how to differentiate ASD and PFO.
How to differentiate ASD and PFO?
Yeah.
PFO, look for the PFO in a young child, neonate. Look,
Okay.
neonate who is born, examine this PFO. There is a small defect which may be seen, and there is right to left shunting. RA pressure is more than LA, and then there is a right to left shunting. It may become bidirectional, and ultimately the PFO will close. So that is the PFO in a neonate. But adults have PFO and they have bidirectional shunting, small PFO with bidirectional shunting, which may be difficult to pick up with the transthoracic echo. You may need transesophageal echocardiography. We have done a study in our center, Government Rajaji Hospital. Dr. Pratap, who is the assistant professor of cardiology in Madras Medical College, did his thesis on this. He studied stroke patients and looked for the PFO in those patients and looked for the thrombosis of cause secondary to this in those patients. So stroke with the PFO, and that was his thesis. And we did a transesophageal echo to identify these defects and look for the cause for the thrombus. Thank you.
Significance of TSI by Dr. Agrawal.
Significance of
TSI. SI.
DSI? DSA? That is a digital subtraction angiography? I don't know what he means by this.
Maybe.
Digital subtraction angiography is a different topic.
Okay, no issues. So Dr. Prem asks, probe can be changed or not in VScan, and same probe can be used for all purpose or not?
There are two probes basically. One is the echo probe, which you use for the adults, and second is the vascular probe. These probes can be changed. I mean, can be selected by selecting in the equipment. You can choose whether to do the echocardiography or whether to do lung ultrasound or whether to do vascular. So that is how you do that. But these probe, whether it is interchangeable, it is out of question. It can be done only by the service personnel. I don't know whether if there is a probe is damaged, they are going to replace it. If it is under insurance, they may replace it. Otherwise, they may be having their own difficulties.
Okay. Dr. Akhil wants to know the LV systolic function measuring method using EPSS, another method for diastolic function.
The EPSS is a E-point septal separation, which is done by M-mode. This equipment, which I showed you, depends on 2D only. The M-mode, which is used in this equipment, is for lung only. You cannot do your standard M-mode calculation using this equipment. That you should be clear. And even American Society of Echocardiography has suggested stop using M mode for ejection fraction calculation. Don't do that. Always use the 2D. So 2D ejection fraction is possible by this method, and you can do that. And similarly, you can do the LA volume assessment. LA emptying fraction can be calculated, which may help you in diagnosing the associated diastolic dysfunction in these patients. So primarily, you must know this equipment has 2D, color flow mapping, vascular, lung ultrasound, and M mode for lungs. So this is how it is organized. You don't have tissue Doppler, you don't have spectral Doppler. So you must remember this and M mode. So these are the limitations of this equipment, which you must understand. I think the engineers who are doing the pioneering work for GE from Norway will solve this problem. They will add these things into this equipment, and it will be available soon. And my suggestion would be to add the strain calculation, where you can have the Bullseye plot and other things you can show that. So that should be added first. I don't know whether it is possible.
Sure,
You must, your engineer should tell me.
Sure, sir. So one is, Dr. Sushani has general question. How good is ultrasound to replace CT scan totally?
See, these things cannot be replaced. This is a different avenue,
Yes.
that is a different avenue. One cannot replace another thing. One can complement. And just saying this ultrasound equipment, which is a portable equipment, can complement you as a electronic stent. So every cardiologist who has an stent should carry an electronic stent also. Your diagnosis will be easy. Your problems will be easy. You can solve the problem immediately. When there is a diagnostic dilemma, you can take decisions on this spot. So, right in your consultation room, you should have an electronic stent. As a cardiologist, as a leading cardiologist, as a physician, cardiac physician, you should have this. And in emergency room, the ER room, now ER is balanced by ER physicians, they should have this in the ER. They should do the ultrasound. They should do the lung ultrasound. They should do the basic echocardiography. Get the opinion from the cardiologist. And you can do the in preventive OPs, in OP, to identify the patient who are at risk for atherosclerosis complications, can be assessed by measuring the intima media thickness. So all these things are bedside. That is the advantage. CT equipment is a heavy equipment. You have to move the patient to a different area, and a lot of problems are involved. Now every patient wants whole diagnosis right in your consultation room. They Google something, they find something, they ask you so many questions, which can be cleared by this. So that is the advantage of this technology.
Another one question is from Dr. Pradeep. What is the role of ultrasound in lungs? I think this you have covered in your
It is extensively
presentation.
covered in the chapters, and anesthetists are taking this in a great way. Anesthetists. And every anesthetist does echocardiography, who does an echocardiography is a lung specialist. And in the ER room, ER physicians are depending on this to identify consolidation. They can identify the pneumothorax. They can identify the pulmonary edema. So depending on the B lines and lung sliding and other things which I emphasize, you can identify. So at the bedside, it will be easy. Before the patient going for CT or X-ray chest, at the bedside you can have this. So you should have a handy electronic stent in the form of ultrasound in your pocket, so that you can do these things at the bedside. So this is a consultation. Start the antibiotics. This is a pneumothorax. Put in a needle. So that is way in the emergency room it will be very, very helpful. Just before shifting the portable X-ray equipment, just identify the pneumothorax would be great for the patient. It's a life-saving procedure. It will be.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Dr. Ashish has raised a couple of things. First of all, he has appreciated and he said that he has wonderful technology and great presentation by you. and of course the PNDT challenges. He wants that how to be addressed to that. Second is that can the
What is the
ejection
first
fraction
question?
can be done.
First question?
First is that PNDT permission.
PNDT.
So
PNDT
you
permission,
know,
just before the equipment comes, you have to apply to the JD nearby JD office that such and such equipment you ordered, and this is these things, and the rest of the things will be taken care of by GE. GE is very good in helping you in the PNDT clearance. We have one active Muthupandi here who does all the work in the JD. So the application is already you should be having an ultrasound equipment. So to add this, you have to apply for the addition of the equipment. It has to go to the JD office, and the JD will come for inspection, and he will identify the serial number of the equipment, and then he will give you the certificate. That is that much simple because of GE.
yeah. Thank you, sir. Then ejection fraction can be done automatically. That you already shown.
Yes,
So that was
LBO
his
is a
question.
very easy technique that covers the whole thing, and you can have the ejection fraction calculation right at your fingertips. So you go to a
Yeah.
patient, examine this, you say clinical diagnosis S1, S2 normal, LV S4 plus LV ejection fraction. So your diagnosis is complete right at the bedside itself. No need to ship the patient to have to another center for a big ultrasound study, and he has to go there, wait. In COVID days, all this mobility and these restrictions can be avoided by using this electronic stuff.
Yeah. And the last question of Dr. Ashish is, can we use saline contrast for picking up PFO in V-scan extend?
Yes, we can use that saline contrast. You can inject the contrast, and then you can use that. Agitated saline can be used for picking up this PFO. You can inject from the right cubital area or right femoral area, femoral vein, and then look for the PFO.
So one Dr. R. Allegation has asked, tissue synchronization imaging is TSI for dyssynchrony. I think it was that.
He is a master of echocardiogram. So he says
Okay.
explanation for tissue synchronization.
Okay. I think this is all. So, because last Dr. Arun Sarkar asked at strain assessment, so I think it is available in the bigger systems. So
Yes.
that was the thing.
We should also come up with this strain imaging.
Yeah, strain, and we'll
Yes,
take up this with the factory people.
Local tracking can be added so that you will have a lot of advantages.
So thank you so much, Dr. Anuthan, and let me tell you, the audience, he is the first vScan Extend user in the country, and because of him only, we have again ventured into vScan Extend, and now we are getting good success and good number of inquiries, and people are showing interest in this during COVID and pandemic times. The use of this equipment very well shown by Dr. Anuthan, and I really appreciate to the whole team who did this show. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.